So we are going to do the biodex scaption protocol. I'm going to start from the very beginning here. I'm going to turn on the machine at the back, which I think we probably, yeah, there you go, right there. I am going to turn on the computer, and before we start anything, we're going to go to setup position. And I'm going to set this thing up where it fits kind of myself first, and then I'm going to put Madison in there. I'm going to take the knee attachment off, because that's what was on it last time. And we're going to be using the shoulder, one of the shoulder attachments, but I'm going to unscrew this, lift this thing up, and that's so that it clears. We're going to say that we're going to do Madison's right shoulder. There's a bar under here that I'm going to need to loosen, and so I'm going to turn that counterclockwise to loosen it. I'm going to pull this lever out. I'm going to rotate the machine this way. I'm going to lock it in place by pulling this lever towards me, which happens to be clockwise, righty-tighty, right? Make sure the wires aren't caught on anything. And then I know this is going to probably be too high, so I'm going to press down on this. If you need to stand up on something, you can, but use your body weight to do that. And then tighten that. Don't tighten it too tight, because chances are you're going to have to adjust that. I'm going to put this thing on there, and yeah, it just fits. Now there's a red dot here, and that red dot should line up with the single dot right here. So dot to dot is what happens sometimes is when the machine is turned on, if this dot was spun around over here, and I turn and I put this device in, then there's a good chance that I would go, my red dot would be lined up with the two dots instead of the one dot, and then I would be limited in my ability to do the range of motion. So you always want to make sure you have access to that. And since that's such a common mistake, let me show you how to avoid it. I'm going to go ahead and turn this machine on so that that thing spins around. So right now that machine is spun around like that. If I was to put this on right here, it would not work, because I have the two dots that are lined up with the one dot. So to make this machine work, I actually have to spin this thing all the way around. Sometimes that's not even possible, so what you have to do is turn this knob to get the dot to come around on its own. And then where I have it when I have it where I want it, then I can just hit standby, and it still moves, so you have to be kind of quick. And then I'm going to put this in here, so now my one dot lines up with my red dot. I'm going to screw this thing in here. Now I already know I'm going to be working with a device in which the person can let go of. So I know it's okay to set a little bit larger range than what they actually have, just because they're free to let go of it. Something that they're strapped into, I would not preset the range. So that's what makes this protocol different than the internal-external rotation and the knee flexion extension. So I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to hit standby, on, and then start. And from here, I'm going to go all the way up with this, and I'm going to press, that's the end of position 1. But I'm going to back this all the way down to 50%. Make sure you do that, because you don't want to take the person through 100% of the range on their first rep. So putting it down to 50% is very, very, very important. That's going to be the bottom of the range, and that can be at 100% just because we know that's the bottom. So to get this thing lined up correctly, I'm going to try to get my shoulder lined up with that axis of rotation. The arm is right here. So I got pretty lucky. That's going to line up pretty good. we'll see how it is once we get Madison in here. But if anything, sometimes I like the axis of rotation being just slightly on the high side, so I can get a little bit of distraction force out of that on the way up. So I'm going to lock that into place. I think this needs to be probably a tad longer. Now once we find the right setting, make sure that you put it in the chart. So if this was the right setting, we would be at height 39 inches and we'd be extended out just right at 6 inches. Then you don't have, then you can preset it up without having to do all the guesswork. Go ahead and have a seat here, Madison. So we have the shoulder joint that's lining up here. Again, this is slightly above the shoulder, but that's what I had hoped for. You're going to have your hand right there. And it looks like to me you're having to reach out for that just a little bit. Can you squeeze back here just a little bit? Keep that shoulder back like that. And I'm going to shorten this lever just a little bit for you. Good. So this is the number that would be in the chart, just about 4.2 on that. That's tight, this is tight, this is tight, this is tight, right? Now Madison, you can let go of that machine anytime you want, okay? In fact, for the first repetition, I want your hand off of that and just resting right there. So anytime you want, you can take your hand away from that. I want you to see how high that's going to go, okay? So I'm going to go over here to the passive mode. I'm at 50%, so it will not go up all the way. I'm going to hit start, and now we can see the machine is traveling up. So on your first repetition, that's as far up as it's going to go, okay? And then I'm going to stop it at the bottom. So wait till it gets to the bottom. I'll make sure the torque limits are set, so I'm only going to set it like a 40-pound torque limit here, just in case you know, she got into an awkward situation. Go ahead and hold on to that. Now you just go along for the ride, okay? Keep your shoulder blade back, but let the machine do the work. I'm going to start that. There you go. Now do you feel like we can go higher without any pain? Mm-hmm. So I'm going to turn this up to about 60%. If she's okay with that, I'll go up a little higher. I'm always checking with her. You're still okay with that. So we'll, for the first day, that's as high up as I'm going to go. I'm definitely not going to go to 100%. So this is passive range of motion. This is just kind of joint polishing. I'm going to take the delay out so that we just get the passive motion. Now Madison, I'm going to have you progress this a little bit. And I'm going to ask you to resist the machine, but not to pain. So don't push into pain, but just fight the machine a little bit on the way up and then help it on the way down. So fight it on the way up. Good. Help it on the way down. So as what we're doing on the way up, we're recruiting the humeral head depressors to create a little bit more room in your shoulder. And we want those things to activate when you're using that shoulder in real life. So that would be stage 2. We started with range of motion. Now we're going with that. We could do multiple angle stabilization from here, where I say, okay, Madison, now as that machine is going up and down, I want you to pull that device towards the wall. And of course it's not going to move, but you're recruiting your posterior muscles now. And then we can do that for 10 repetitions, and then I'm going to say, okay, now at any time, take your hand off there and relax. But next we're going to have you push your hand towards that wall. And now you're recruiting more your anterior muscles as you're doing that. And we notice your elbow wants to hyperextend a little bit there, so keep a little bend in that elbow. There you go. See, that's a much more stable position. We never want to put a joint in an end range position, whether it's an elbow, a knee, a wrist. That's a nice neutral posture. When you're exercising, you're going to have to pay special attention to that, just to make sure that you don't get in an unstable situation. Now ultimately we can do this in an active assistive mode. This would be the last stage of probably a multi-treatment progression. But in this case, Madison, I'm going to have you help the machine on the way up. Okay? So this is the stage of scaption that we would do before we would actually have her lift her arm under her own power. So right now, the machine is lifting her arm and she's just helping the machine. Eventually, we will have her progressed from the machine and eventually doing some weight like that. And so, you know, there would be no reason a person would need to be doing this exercise and on the same day doing scaption with the weight, because it's a progressive model. This is something that's very appropriate during the acute stage, not so appropriate during the chronic stage, unless you were doing eccentric training and that type of thing. Time's up. So from there, I'm going to have you just relax there. I'm going to stop the machine. You can take your hand off of that, shake the hand out, and remember when we're doing this to give people frequent breaks to do that, because holding on to that for a long time is kind of uncomfortable. Now, one thing I didn't show is how we would set that up to give us a readout here. I know that you've seen that on other protocols, but I'm going to hit enter. I'm going to side arrow. So I just side arrowed to get to operation, and then I'm going to hit enter, 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 and then I'm going to end by repetitions. If you adjusted anything, it would be exercise sets. Let's say we're going to do 20 exercise sets. Enter. 10 repetitions, so we're good there. If we wanted to give a longer break here, we would go up to that, hit enter, and maybe do 45 seconds. Enter. And then we're going to go down to run rehab. And then once the green light goes, that way we could get a visual readout of performance. But as you could see there, we can do an entire treatment and this thing never be turned on. The computer only records what's happening at this machine. It does not control this machine. This machine is hardwired, and so that's what makes it kind of foolproof.